A very good morning and Jai Hind to all of you. Today, children, we shall continue with our topic, that is the Village Schoolmaster. And I'll try to talk about the poem, line by line. At the same time, I'll recite also so that it's totally clear how and where we have reached. Okay, so that none of you have any sort of confusion regarding the explanations. Okay, now the Village Schoolmaster, it's written, it's actually a portion from a very lengthy poem that is called The Deserted Village. Okay, and it is written by Oliver Goldsmith. And in my previous video, I believe I had already spoken lots and lots about him and his contribution. All right, so let's get started without delaying. Before I start, I just want to share a few things, line by line. Okay, maybe you can say a little bit gist, all right, which I have actually, noted down. So I'll just share that. Okay, so I have tried to, write few important points about this poem so that you have a very clear conception about it. Okay, this poem was written by Oliver Goldsmith, as I have told you before. This poem is an extract from Goldsmith's poem, The Deserted Village. It is probably set in the rural area where the speaker was born. And this is the poem which depicts the reality in which poet shares his sentiments towards his teacher. Okay, Thomas Paine may be the schoolmaster of the poet here. Then this is the story of a schoolmaster who has given so much respect from the side of villagers because of his immense knowledge and his keen interest in reading. In this poem, the poet tells that how the things have changed over the times, over the years in past. Okay, so these are the few, minute details, I would say. All right. All right, so that was precisely in maybe a nutshell what the whole poem is all about. Right now, let's do explanation part one by one. Beside yon straggling fence that skirts the way with blossomed firs, unprofitably gay, there in his noisy mansion, skilled to rule, the village master taught his little school. Well, children, you all can see that there are few words which are being used here. It might be difficult for some, or it might be okay, with the others. So it's been already pointed out here. The very first word which I came across was straggling. Now, straggling means spread in an uneven manner. Beside yon straggling fence that skirts the way. Now, skirts here does not mean the skirt which the girls wear. It means lies along the edge of. Okay, that means maybe, if you have seen all the lanes, so there are bushes seen around, the lanes, maybe in a row, isn't it? So that is what, wherein you can use this word skirts, because it shows lies along the edge of something. Okay, now here firs means shrub with fragrant yellow flowers. So very bushy kind of flowers, you might say, that that blossoms together as bunch. Okay, now that is what is firs. And here gay means very bright and beautiful. All right, so precisely in this first stanza, the poet is giving a physical description of the school, as in where the school was actually, situated. Okay, so that is what is being told here. There in his noisy mansion, skilled to rule. So he probably stays in a mansion, that means a huge house, okay, where he was the master, he had no one. Okay, so that means it was like all to be done according to the master. Okay, the village master taught his little school, so he was the only one to dictate, to do everything, and everybody were expected to abide by whatever he used to say. A man severe he was and stern to view. I knew him well, and every truant knew. Well, had the boding tremblers learned to trace the day's disasters in his morning face? Okay, so here we find there is an introduction of the teacher. That means we are now talking about his, you can say, behavioral pattern of the schoolmaster. Like he was very stern, he seemed to be very stern. Now stern in the sense that here we are actually talking about him being very disciplinarian. That means he always commanded, he wanted children to be very much disciplined, obeying all the rules and regulations, and well, had the boding tremblers learned to trace. Now here, children, truant means student who is absent from school without permission. That means typical absentees, without even informing the concerned teacher. Okay, so they are called truants. And boding. Boding means expecting something bad to happen. That means when you have that strong intuition of something, something very sad or some kind of mishap to happen, if you have that sense beforehand, so that is what is boding here means. So now what used to happen was that the children, they used to surmise, they used to have that fair kind of guess, looking into the schoolmaster's appearance, how his mood might be, whether he was in that jovial mood to crack jokes and all, or whether he was in a foul kind of a mood. That means supposing if they would feel that the teacher was in a very foul mood, they would just behave very properly. They would follow whatever the decorum was supposed to be. Okay. So that was the very first and the second stanza. Now I have found out a very good, I would say, helping kind of content which I would like to share. This would actually make things pretty more clear. Okay, so if you wish to jot down anything from this particular page, you all are free to do so. So the poem, as I had told you, that it is an excerpt from a longer poem which is called The Deserted Village. In this, the speaker's sentiments about a teacher is being conveyed. Okay, the word village in the title clearly suggests that the poem is set in a rural area where the speaker lived and was taught by the subject of the poem. Okay, in the very first two lines, the speaker mentions exactly where the school was located. So that's what I told. The school was located in such a place where they had, those bushy yellow flowers at the edge, okay, at the edge of that, maybe that road. The fence beside which the school building was situated is described as straggling. That means it was dilapidated and probably leaning over. The road led towards, and the past the school was lined with, beautiful flowers. And here the phrase unprofitably gay suggests that the flowers which were blooming beautifully were not being admired or appreciated. That means nobody, actually bothered ever to just have a look at those beautiful flowers which were lined up there. Okay, so that was one very something which was very much missing. All right, now in next few lines, the speaker refers to the school building itself as a noisy mansion. So the place, that means the school building, was no less than a noisy mansion. Okay, now why it's been called a noisy mansion, children? Because teaching was done there. There were children who used to come and go. So that was what the noise, whatever teaching was done, whatever activity was done during the course of time, so that led to creation of so-called, noise within quotes. It's not that the noise which we get to hear from outside. Okay, so it is that beautiful noise which we the teachers are missing right now when we are there in school, isn't it? Okay, so the village teacher equipped to manage a class taught his lessons there. Okay, the term master now here denotes the respect he enjoyed. He was the most respectable person in that particular village. Okay, now the speaker goes on to describe the teacher's character and style of teaching. Each description is rounded off in a rhyming couplet. So that means we have a particular rhyming scheme also, which we'll deal later on once we finish with the explanations. Now, as I was talking, as I was, reciting the second stanza just few minutes back, I told that in that stanza, we are talking about his stern look, his appearance. Okay. Now, the teacher was very strict and he had a typical stern look. Okay. Now, the speaker states that he knew him well, which means that he had an in-depth understanding of his teacher's mood swings. Okay. Probably he was always, he was able to read the expressions and the gestures which the teacher used to say produce. This familiarity could also have been the result of many personal and individual encounters he had with this educator. So now this might have happened, maybe you never know, the speaker might have done some hanky panky and then got the result in front of him. So that's how he might have understood the typical mood of his teacher, right? Now here the truant, as I told you, it implies that the speaker may have been, one of those who might have intentionally bunked classes. Bunking classes means when you leave class, you don't attend the class. Okay, and who had been confronted by the teacher about his misdemeanor. That means you leave the class, okay, without even informing the teacher about your not attending the lecture. Okay, and then the very next day when the teacher asks you, like, yes, you, why didn't you attend the class yesterday? Where were you? And then, when the teacher starts asking all sorts of questions and you are just, caught red-handed, I would say, because it was your deliberate, your intentional missing of the classes, isn't it? So don't you ever do that, children. That's really very disrespectful towards your teachers, isn't it? So don't have that intention in your mind. If you are not feeling well or if you have to go somewhere, so you can inform your teacher prior, or you can inform your the class monitors that on such and such date during this hour you won't be there, and the reason being whatever. So if the reason is genuine, children, you need not be named as truants, or you need not, you won't be counted amongst the truants. Okay. All right. Now, let me first recite. Okay. So we have done with the second stanza. Now I'll share the third stanza. Full well they laughed with counterfeited glee at all his jokes, for many a joke had he. Full well the busy whisper circling round conveyed the dismal tidings when he frowned. Yet he was kind, or if severe in aught, the love he bore to learning was in fault. The village all declared how much he knew. The village all declared how much he knew. 'Twas certain he could ride and cipher too. Lands he could measure, terms and tides presage, and even the story ran that he could gauge. In arguing too, the person owned his skill, for even though vanquished, he could argue still. Okay, now further aspects about the teacher's personality indicate that he had a very, very expressive face, and that his pupils means the students could easily read his mood as a result. They would, like, for example, know that a certain ominous look spelled trouble coming, especially for those who had been disobedient. They would start, trembling in anticipation and fear of what was to come, because they knew their teacher very well. If they did some hanky panky, some naughty things or mischiefs, if it was done, they were very much aware of the consequences. All right. So it is clear that the teacher also had a good sense of humor, for many a joke had he, isn't it? So it's not that he was such a great disciplinarian, but he also, when he was, in a very good mood, in a jovial mood, he also used to crack jokes. Okay. The students would seek pleasure at his silly stories or funny stories, and they used to laugh at them. Why? Probably to avoid being reprimanded. Okay, so they used to just have a gala time when the teacher was in a very good mood. Words would quickly spread around the classroom about about the anticipated trouble whenever the teacher scowled. That means everybody used to be, very much alert. All their antennas used to be on alert signal, and they knew that if the teacher was, having that frown look, they were for sure knowing that that day they would have a very bad day. Okay, so the speaker provides a contrast to the teacher's strict demeanor, not only by stating that he was humorous at times, but also by mentioning that he was kind. Okay, so it was not only that he was a strict disciplinarian, like, yes, you're not supposed to do this and that. And he was not only that, at the same point of time, he was also a very kind-hearted person. Okay, let's move ahead. The speaker, in fact, states that if one should take it to the extreme, it could be said that the teacher's greatest flaw was that he loved learning too much. So he says that, his teacher was crazy about learning. He was always open to learning, right? Look at the line, or if severe or not, the love he bore to learning was in fault. That means he was a crazy person in the sense that, He was always after learning. He wanted to learn every time some or the other thing. He was open to learning. Okay. The schoolmaster was not only admired and respected by his students, but he was also looked up to by the residents of the village. The villagers always looked upon him. Everybody were in praise for him. Why? For his knowledge, first thing. And you know what, children, he was so intelligent. He was so intelligent that he could do mathematics. He could predict the weather patterns, whether there would be high tide or low tide. Then he could write very well, beautiful. Then if you look into page number 87, there are lines like lands he could measure, terms and tides, presage. So here presage means predict, okay? And he could measure land, without even going for, looking for the equipments, okay? Just by looking at the stretch of the land, he could tell the villagers the accurate size of that land, the stretch of the land. So that intelligent was this person, the schoolmaster. He was an accurate surveyor who could determine borders easily. Then he could also debate intelligently and be involved in discussions with the villagers in all sorts of matters in the village itself. Okay, so he was a person who was greatly respected by his parishioners. All right, the teacher seemed to be a fierce opponent in such discourse. He would continue, he would keep on arguing on a point even after he had already lost the dispute. That means he never ever wanted himself to be felt defeated at all, at any cost. He used to keep on arguing and arguing and arguing, even when he knew in his heart of hearts that he would be, having sure defeat, but still he had to keep on arguing. All right, the master would always, use very difficult words, then emotive language to sound very convincing. Okay, when he felt that that means he was about to get defeated, he was so intelligent, he started using all difficult words so that the villagers could not understand. So he was very smart, isn't it? And in this way, he was able to impress and convince all those poor educated villagers. So that was the condition. He was so super intelligent, he was so smart. Okay, while words of learned length and thundering sound amazed the gazing rustics ranged around, and still they gazed, and still the wonder grew that one small head could carry all he knew. Isn't it? So people in his village, they were always in awe. They were very much surprised to find that the teacher could know so much. He was such a knowledgeable person. They could not understand how his, small little head contained so much of knowledge. Okay, so that quest was always there. All right, the poem ends, however, on a very sad and poignant note. The final couplet, that means the final stanza, the last stanza tells us that all the teacher's achievements have become now a thing of past. The place where he had enjoyed so much success has now ceased to even exist and has been forgotten. That means that respect which the teacher, the school master was having during that time. So that is all, it's like, it has like vanished in thin air. It's something like that. So that is how the poem is coming to an end. Now, the poem conveys the speaker's respect and admiration for his, erstwhile educators. That means for his teachers who had taught him. It also reflects the changes that occurred in, all these villages, the rural communities, when land was divided, and then the property was abandoned or it might be claimed by the private landowners. Then many inhabitants, they started leaving the villages, and they started looking for home elsewhere. That privatization when started to encroach into this rural community, so thereby the downfall started. Now, why do I say downfall? Because the whole the whole flavor of the poem lies here. Like, look, imagine how beautifully the poet has explained all this, uh, talking about the appearance of the teacher, then how disciplinarian he was, and then how, despite of being disciplinarian, he was also kind-hearted. Then he also was very much like the other people, like he used to crack jokes when he was in a good mood. So all these things started dwindling when this privatization started emerging. Okay, privatization started emerging in the sense, what I mean to say is that the private landowners started claiming their land, isn't it? Now, this kind of school started getting vanished, isn't it? And the people started immigrating from that rural area to somewhere else. So that led to a problem. Okay, and that is how the essence of that kind of a beautiful setup of that noisy mansion started getting vanished. Okay, so that was one thing. Then now, in my next video, children, I would discuss all the figure of speech. Then we shall discuss the exercise, and probably I can tell you to go to write maybe something about the school teacher. Okay, so how that teacher was, that is very important. So you need to prepare one character sketch of the school master. Okay, uh, so I think that's all for today, and I hope you would go back to the content and go through it once. And if you have any concerns, any doubts, you may always text me on my personal window. See you later, same time, and with some new learnings. Until then, take care, thank you, and Jai Hind.